Picture yourself relaxing in your favorite chair this evening, maybe with a warm cup of tea nearby, and let's have a straightforward, friendly conversation about something that quietly affects so many folks once they reach their 60s and beyond. You might notice little things creeping in, like forgetting where you put your keys right after setting them down, feeling your mind wander more during a chat with friends, or waking up some mornings with a sense that everything just feels a bit heavier or less sharp than it used to. It's tempting to shrug and say that's normal for getting older, but from what I've seen over many years working with seniors, a huge portion of those changes ties directly to what happens during the hours you're supposed to be sleeping peacefully. And for more than 2 decades now, I've dedicated my time to understanding sleep's role in keeping older brains healthy and functioning well. Day after day in my practice, I meet people who are genuinely concerned. They describe how their memory seems unreliable lately, how they snap at little annoyances they once let slide, or how a constant low-level fog makes even simple decisions feel harder. Almost always, they assume this is just the price of aging, something unavoidable that comes with the years. But time and again, when we look closer, the main issue turns out to be habits around sleep that have slowly drifted in ways no one really notices until the effects build up. The good news is that these are usually fixable with small, doable changes that don't require fancy equipment, pills, or major lifestyle overhauls. Sleep does far more than give your body a break. While you're in those deeper phases of rest, especially the slow-wave sleep and the dreaming REM periods, your brain goes into active repair and cleanup mode. It flushes out metabolic waste products that pile up from all the thinking and activity during the day, much like clearing out clutter so the house stays livable. It reinforces the neural pathways that store important memories, so yesterday's conversations, names, or directions stick better. It mends minor damage to connections between brain cells, keeping signals flowing smoothly. And it processes the day's emotions, helping you wake up with a more balanced outlook instead of carrying yesterday's frustrations into today. When sleep gets interrupted repeatedly or doesn't reach those deeper stages consistently, the brain misses out on this essential overnight work. The result shows up first in everyday mental life. Thoughts move slower, details slip away more easily, focus wavers, and moods can feel unpredictable even when nothing major is wrong in your life. According to reliable data from the National Institute on Aging, close to half of everyone over 65 experiences some form of persistent sleep trouble. Yet more than 60% of those same people view their sleep problems as either no big deal or simply an expected part of growing older. They don't connect the dots to how those nights of poor rest quietly erode brain performance over months and years. The damage happens without loud alarms. No sudden pain, no obvious crisis. Just a steady, subtle decline in how clearly and steadily the mind works. And after reviewing countless studies and hearing hundreds of personal stories, one fact stands out clearly. Among all the possible influences on senior brain health, sleep habits often turn out to be the single most powerful and most changeable factor. It's not primarily about diet excesses like too much sugar, ongoing high stress levels, or family genetics alone. It's much more about the patterns we fall into around when and how we sleep. Today, let's go through this together in a relaxed way. I'll describe the 5 most frequent sleep-related habits that quietly undermine brain function for people in their later years, then share straightforward adjustments supported by research from places like Harvard, Stanford, the University of Colorado, Johns Hopkins, the University of Michigan, and the National Institute on Aging. These aren't theoretical ideas. They're practical steps that have helped real people regain noticeable mental clarity, steadier emotions, and better daily focus. Nothing here is extreme or hard to try. Before we get into the details, if you're comfortable, just drop your age in the comments section. It gives me a sense of who's joining this conversation and who might be nodding along, recognizing their own experiences. First, consider irregular bedtime schedules. For many seniors, bedtime shifts night to night, Perhaps earlier one evening because you're tired after a family visit, later another because a favorite show runs long, or different still on weekends. That inconsistency disrupts the brain's built-in daily clock, known as the circadian rhythm. This internal timing system coordinates peaks in alertness, memory efficiency, focus ability, and emotional steadiness throughout the 24 hours. As we move into our 60s and 70s, the circadian system loses some of its natural flexibility, making regular cues even more important to keep things running smoothly. At the center of this clock sits a small cluster of cells called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, which depends heavily on predictable signals, especially consistent wake-up and bedtime, to maintain proper alignment. When bedtime varies significantly, the brain struggles to anticipate and deliver full cycles of deep non-REM sleep, the phase most responsible for consolidating memories, so they become long-term and accessible. Researchers at the University of Colorado conducted a careful 8-year study following 300 adults, and their findings were striking. People with inconsistent sleep timing experienced about 30% faster decline in episodic memory, the kind that lets you recall specific events, conversations, or experiences, even when their total sleep duration appeared adequate. That means getting 7 or 8 hours doesn't automatically protect you if the timing jumps around. Quality of sleep hinges on predictability. The brain performs best when it can count on deep rest arriving at roughly the same window each night. If you've ever had the frustrating experience of stepping into a kitchen and immediately blanking on what you came for, or starting a sentence and losing the thread halfway through, go ahead and type "foggy" in the comments. We're likely talking about the same thing many others feel. A second common pattern is staying in bed while wide awake for extended periods, 20 minutes, 40 minutes, an hour, sometimes longer. It seems sensible at first. You're already comfortable under the covers, so you figure you'll eventually drift off if you just wait it out. But the brain is a quick learner when it comes to associations. Spending prolonged time awake in the bedroom environment teaches it to link that space with wakefulness, rumination, planning, or mild worry, rather than automatic relaxation and sleep. Gradually, this conditioning weakens the bed's role as a cue for rest, leading to lighter, more broken-up sleep overall, with many short awakenings throughout the night. Imagine your bed as a peaceful, private garage designed solely for parking and resting. Lingering awake turns it into something closer to a noisy street intersection where activity never fully stops. In a detailed study by Johns Hopkins University involving 250 adults aged 65 and up, those who regularly stayed awake, long stretches in bed showed 42% more nighttime awakenings and scored noticeably higher on measures of morning anxiety. That added edginess might appear as irritability over small things, difficulty concentrating on reading or hobbies, or a vague sense that your thinking lacks its former steadiness, even if you've never dealt with anxiety issues in the past. Then there's the habit of going to bed unusually early, often 7 or 8 o'clock in the evening, under the reasonable belief that more time in bed equals more rest. While the intention is good, biology works differently here. The brain requires a sufficient accumulation of wakeful hours during the day to generate adequate sleep pressure, the natural buildup of tiredness that drives you into deeper sleep stages once you finally lie down. When bedtime comes too soon after waking, that pressure hasn't had time to develop fully. So even though you're in bed for 9 or 10 hours, the actual time spent in restorative slow-wave sleep and REM sleep gets shortened. Slow-wave sleep is vital for washing away brain waste and locking in factual memories, while REM supports emotional processing and creative problem-solving. Without enough prior wakefulness, these phases don't reach their full duration or intensity. Researchers at the University of Michigan examined this exact pattern in older adults and discovered that those with early bedtimes had REM cycles roughly 20% shorter than expected, despite the long total time in bed. The outcome often resembles mild cognitive slippage, trouble with word finding, slower processing, occasional confusion, But because it's driven by timing rather than irreversible damage, adjusting the schedule frequently reverses much of it. The brain remains capable. It just hasn't been given the right conditions to perform at its best. A fourth factor that surprises many is exposure to even small amounts of light during the night hours. This could be a hallway bulb left on for safety, the soft glow from an alarm clock, a quick glance at a phone screen when you wake briefly, or light leaking from under a door from a television in another room. Light, especially blue wavelengths but even dim warm tones in excess, signals the brain that it's still daytime, suppressing the release of melatonin. Melatonin serves dual purposes. It promotes the onset of sleep and supports deeper stages once you're asleep, while also offering protective effects to neurons against everyday oxidative stress. When melatonin gets reduced, sleep stays lighter, waste clearance slows, and memory encoding weakens. Stanford University scientists studied adults 65 and older and found that low-level nighttime illumination cut melatonin production by about 50%, resulting in shallower rest and measurably poorer performance on memory tasks the following day. People tend to underestimate this influence because the brain doesn't protest loudly right away. The effects accumulate gradually, making them easy to attribute to just getting older, instead of a modifiable environmental factor. Finally, relying on sleep medications over the long term deserves careful attention. Short-term use during acute stress or travel can be helpful for some, but when these drugs, especially benzodiazepines, certain sedatives, or similar compounds, become a nightly routine for 6 months or more, they often interfere with the very sleep stages most important for brain health. Deep, slow-wave sleep and REM get suppressed, meaning less effective toxin clearance, weaker memory consolidation, and less thorough emotional resetting. A key study published in JAMA Neurology followed seniors using benzodiazepines nightly for extended periods and reported a 23% reduction in slow-wave sleep duration. That particular stage plays a starring role in removing beta amyloid and other proteins that build up and are linked to cognitive decline when allowed to accumulate unchecked. So a person might feel they've slept adequately because they were unconscious for hours. Yet the brain misses critical repair work, leading to cumulative effects on clarity, mood, and recall. None of these habits inevitably leads to irreversible harm. One of the most encouraging aspects of brain science in later life is resilience, the capacity to recover function when conditions improve. Even well into the 70s, 80s, and beyond, the brain responds positively to better sleep support. The path forward isn't about worry or drastic intervention. It's about gentle awareness and practical tweaks that align daily routines more closely with natural biology. Let me bring this to life with 2 examples from my own patients. Margaret was 72 when she first came to see me. She sat across from me looking tired and worried, explaining in a quiet voice how frightened she felt. "My mind isn't what it used to be," she said. She'd find herself standing in the middle of a room with no idea why she'd gone there, searching for common words during phone calls with her daughter and coming up empty, or noticing a growing undercurrent of anxiety that made her feel unlike herself. She managed about 8 hours in bed most nights, but when we mapped out her routine, her bedtime fluctuated between roughly 9 and 11 depending on the evening, and she regularly spent close to an hour lying awake with racing thoughts about family, health, or tomorrow's to-do list. Together, we introduced the REST protocol, a structured but simple set of steps I'll explain in detail shortly. Margaret committed to the changes with quiet determination. After 6 weeks, she returned with a noticeable lift in her expression. Mornings now felt about 80% clear and alert instead of the 40% she described before. Nighttime awakenings fell from 4 or 5 down to 1 or 2 at most. The creeping anxiety eased, replaced by a returning sense of confidence. Her memory still had occasional hiccups, but she said it felt like her brain had finally been allowed to catch its breath. One day, she looked at me and said, "I really believed I was starting to lose my mind for good." Turns out it was just exhausted because the nights weren't giving it what it needed to recover properly. Harold, at 68, presented a different but related picture. He proudly told me he went to bed at 7 every evening to get plenty of rest. Unfortunately, that plan backfired. He'd wake around 3 in the morning and lie awake for hours, frustrated and restless. Formal memory testing revealed mild but noticeable drops in his ability to hold on to new information short-term. For years, he'd taken a low-dose sleep medication to help initiate sleep. We focused first on establishing a consistent wake-up time no matter how fragmented the previous night had been, then gradually delayed bedtime while minimizing evening light and phasing out reliance on the medication under his doctor's guidance. His wearable sleep tracker showed deep sleep increasing by 35% within 8 weeks. On repeat word recall tests, he improved from 15 out of 20 correct to 19 out of 20. The stubborn morning grogginess vanished, and his overall mood became far more even throughout the day. Harold later reflected that the protocol had essentially reset his body's natural sleep-wake rhythms, allowing his brain to carry out repairs it had been missing for a long time. Stories like Margaret's and Harold's happen regularly. Over the years, I've seen hundreds of seniors achieve similar, trackable gains in cognitive sharpness, emotional steadiness, and everyday vitality once their sleep patterns receive thoughtful attention. The framework that consistently produces these results is what I call the REST protocol, built around 4 interconnected principles: rhythm for consistent timing, education to build and preserve natural sleep pressure, stimulus control to strengthen the bed-sleep connection, and timing to optimize when sleep occurs. Rhythm begins with establishing a fixed wake-up time. Pick a realistic hour that works with your lifestyle, perhaps 6:30, 7, or 7:30, and rise at that exact time every single morning, weekends included, even following nights when sleep felt short or broken. This daily anchor powerfully reinforces the circadian clock, increases sleep drive as the day progresses, and promotes fuller expression of deep restorative sleep when night finally arrives. Research from Harvard showed that seniors maintaining fixed wake times experienced a 30% improvement in deep sleep amounts within just 2 weeks. The first few mornings might feel tough if prior nights were rough, but most people notice the body quickly adapts, delivering stronger, more predictable nights as a reward. Education in this context involves deliberately supporting the natural buildup of sleep pressure. Limit daytime naps to 20 minutes maximum, and complete them no later than early afternoon, ideally before 3 o'clock, so they don't steal from nighttime sleep need. Right after waking, seek bright light exposure for 15 to 20 minutes. Natural morning sunlight works best. If clouds or winter make that difficult, sit near a bright lamp designed for light therapy, or even turn on several overhead lights indoors. Combine this with light physical activity, perhaps a gentle walk outside or around your home, some seated stretches, or simple household tasks like watering plants or making breakfast. These elements heighten daytime wakefulness, which in turn deepens and lengthens nighttime sleep, allowing more time for the brain's crucial maintenance processes. Stimulus control tackles those prolonged awake periods directly. The rule is straightforward. If you've been lying in bed 20 to 30 minutes or longer without falling asleep or after waking midnight, get up calmly. Keep bedroom or hallway lighting very dim. Use a small nightlight with a warm reddish or amber tone if needed, and move to another room or a chair. Engage in something calm and dull. Slowly page through an old catalog. Fold laundry quietly. Listen to soft nature sounds or classical music at low volume, or simply sit in the dark, breathing slowly. Importantly, steer clear of anything activating. No bright screens, no news apps, no thrilling books, no problem solving. Return to bed only when genuine sleepiness returns. This technique rebuilds the psychological link between bed and sleep while breaking the association with frustration or alertness. Johns Hopkins researchers documented that seniors practicing stimulus control saw nighttime awakenings decrease by 42% over 6 weeks. often accompanied by an overall calmer approach to sleep difficulties. Timing addresses the ideal bedtime window for most older adults, which tends to fall between 9:30 and 10:30 at night. This range typically synchronizes well with the body's natural evening melatonin increase and provides sufficient overnight duration for multiple complete sleep cycles, ensuring adequate deep and REM phases. If your current bedtime sits much earlier or later, adjust gradually. Shift by 15 minutes every 3 or 4 nights in the desired direction. Patience here prevents rebound insomnia or daytime fatigue from abrupt changes. The University of Michigan observed that seniors who moved toward this optimized timing window saw improvements of 15 to 20% on standard cognitive assessments after 4 weeks, driven largely by extended deep and REM durations that enhanced memory storage and emotional equilibrium. Complementing these steps, minimize artificial light after dark. Switch to warm, low-intensity bulbs in lamps and hallways. Cover or dim any device screens that glow, and establish a no phone, no television rule in the hour before bed. Preserving melatonin supports smoother sleep onset and more effective brain repair overnight. If medications, whether for sleep or other conditions, affect your rest, have an open conversation with your prescribing doctor about possible adjustments that might better support natural sleep architecture. Implementing rest produces a phased progression of benefits that feels natural and sustainable. During the initial week, many notice sleep consolidating slightly, fewer interruptions, somewhat deeper rest, and mornings that start with a bit less heaviness. Week 2 typically brings easier sleep onset, brighter daytime energy, and a gentle reduction in any underlying tension or low mood. By weeks 3 and 4, clearer gains emerge, sharper recall of recent events or names, steadier attention during reading, conversations, or hobbies, and emotions that remain more balanced even on busy days. After the 1-month mark and continuing onward, deep and REM sleep stabilize reliably, reliance on daytime naps drops off, and overall mental sharpness becomes more dependable and familiar. The process resembles a slow, careful reboot of the brain's internal rhythms. Each small improvement builds on the last until the cumulative effect feels substantial and life-enhancing. For complete transparency, rest is not presented as a treatment or cure for conditions like dementia, Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's, or other progressive neurological disorders. It focuses specifically on optimizing sleep to support whatever level of brain function currently exists. Under no circumstances should anyone discontinue prescribed medications without first discussing with their physician. Individuals managing diagnosed sleep apnea, serious cardiovascular problems, clinical depression, or other significant health issues should consult their doctor before adopting major routine shifts. The safest approach starts modestly. Secure the wake-up time first for a week or 2, then slowly adjust bedtime. Weave in morning light and movement, and introduce stimulus control once the foundation feels solid. These modifications carry very low risk, while offering research-backed potential for meaningful brain-supportive gains. My gentle challenge to you is this: choose one single piece of the rest protocol that resonates most. Maybe locking in that consistent morning rise time, nudging bedtime later by small increments, reducing evening light sources, or committing to getting out of bed during long awake spells. And follow through diligently for a full 30 days. Keep a simple daily note of how clear-headed you feel upon waking, how stable your mood remains through the hours, and whether memory or focus seems even slightly more reliable. When the month ends, return here and leave a comment describing what shifted for you. Sharing those observations not only reinforces your own progress, but quietly encourages others who might be hesitating to try similar steps. Your brain has faithfully carried you through a lifetime of experiences, relationships, challenges, joys, and lessons learned. It merits ongoing kindness and support through habits that nurture its continued strength, rather than allowing it to be casually labeled as normal aging. In our next conversation, we'll look at another everyday habit, one that many overlook, that holds surprising power to lift persistent brain fog in seniors. I suspect at least one idea will prompt you to reconsider something you previously took for granted about mental sharpness. If you've stayed right here with me through the entire discussion, type "brain ready to recharge" in the comments below. It would mean a lot to know we made this journey together today. Thank you for listening so attentively. Take good care, and here's to nights that truly restore and days that feel brighter.